Hi, and welcome to the Fantasy Sports Debacle. That's going to be the name of the new show that we're doing. It's all about the fantasy sports for us here. My name is David Lopp. I'm going to be here talking about our top 5 wide receivers for the upcoming season. It's basically going to be pretty straightforward, going along with what most people's are. My rankings aren't that because of them, but it just happens to fall upon that. I do have a good person coming in the mix for the top 5, so we'll see how that comes. And then at the end of the show, we're going to be bringing in Jeremiah to debate with me and see if my claims hold water. So let's go ahead and talk about how I came up with my scoring. So it's based off of a 12-team half-point PPR for where I think the people should be drafted and based off their ADP, which comes from a Fantasy Football Calculator. And all the stats I got were from Pro Football Reference. So if they're a little bit off, I do apologize. I don't keep track of everyone's stats throughout the year. I don't know if anyone really does. But let's go ahead and jump into number 1. Surprise, surprise, Antonio Brown. He's entering the age 30 season. He's 29 now. He'll be 30 when the season starts. He's being picked 5th overall, number 1 receiver off the board. I think that's a fair pick. Honestly, if you wanted to take him 1st overall, I don't hate the pick. I would probably take one of those bell cow running backs myself. I probably wouldn't draft him until maybe 4th, taking one of those big guys first, and then a lot of people like him over Ezekiel Elliott, David Johnson, but Gurley and Bell are going to be your number 1 and number 2 picks for the most part. Last year had 101 receptions, 1,533 yards, 9 touchdowns, over 100 yards per game, and he was 2nd in the league with 163 targets. Those yards were ranked 1st. Not really much to say about the guy. Last 3 years, total touchdowns 31, 4,600 receiving yards, and 343 catches. We can move on. Number 2, DeAndre Hopkins, 26 years old, being picked 8th overall, 2nd receiver off the board. I think that's actually kind of towards the back end of where I would draft this guy. If you want to pick him 6th through 9th in the 1st round, I think that's fair. He only played in 15 games last year, but had 96 catches, 1,378 yards, 13 touchdowns, 91 yards a game last year off of 174 targets, which ranked 1st in the NFL. Touchdowns ranked 1st in the NFL as well. A lot of people, when it comes to DeAndre Hopkins, look at him and go, he's going to have a monster year with Deshaun Watson. That may not be the case. Last year, he played 7 games with Deshaun Watson, 600 yards, 7 touchdowns, and 45 catches. Without Deshaun Watson, 700 yards, 6 touchdowns, 48 catches. That's about the same. So, which tells me no matter who the quarterback is in Houston, he's going to put up his numbers. He's matchup proof. The only weapons there are Will Fuller, kind of Braxton Miller. They drafted a guy named Kuti, I believe you pronounce it, from Texas Tech in the 3rd round. But he's just going to battle with Braxton Miller. Fedora was retired. I just see him getting all the receptions, basically. He had 33% of the targets last year, and that was with Watson as well. So they didn't really change. He's the focal point of the offense. You can pick him and just be knowing that he's a lockdown receiver. Number 3, Odell Beckham Jr., 26 years old. Coming off the board, 11th overall, wide receiver 3 picked. I think he should be picked in the 1st round for sure. If you want to take him 7th, that's fine. If you where they take the big 4 running backs, and then it goes Brown, Hopkins, and then if you wanted to go Odell over a Kamara over a Barkley, I get it. If that's your strategy, I definitely get it. But last year he only played in 4 games. But over the course of his career, he's never had fewer than 1,305 yards, 130 targets, and 10 touchdowns on the season. And a couple of those years, including his rookie year, he didn't play every game. So that tells you right there that he is a monster receiver. Just because he got injured last year, don't sleep on him. Only weapons there are Evan Ingram, Sterling Shepard, and Saquon Barkley. So with him getting 20% of the target share in 2016, I think he'll come right back into those numbers again. Especially now that he's going to be healthy. There's been controversy about him potentially being traded to the Rams this last year. But the big thing with him is that over his entire career, including this past year when we played 4 games, one of them was a bad game, he's averaged 17 fantasy points per game and 80% chance to score a touchdown. Let me repeat that. 17 points per game, 80% chance to score a touchdown every single game. First round pick. We can move on from that. I mean, not to mention the team's going to be a bad team anyways. They picked second overall. They're a bad team. So with that in mind, they're going to be passing the ball. Locked and loaded. Number 4, I have Davante Adams, 26 years old, 18th pick overall, 6th receiver off the board. I think he should be picked in the second round, but early to mid-second round for sure. If I were, I've done a couple mock drafts myself where I'll take a Dalvin Cook in the first, Davante Adams in the second. Good to go. I've done that in best ball a few times as well. He only played in 14 games last year. 75 receptions off of 117 targets, 885 yards, but 10 touchdowns, which was tied for second most in the NFL. And last year, he mostly played with Brett Hundley, right? So that right there contributes a lot of the receiving yards being down, and you can even say the touchdowns being down, with him being tied for second. And the thing about it is, with a healthy Aaron Rodgers, he's going to throw for over 35 touchdowns on the season. And I've heard a lot of analysts talk about this, but it's the truth. Show me how Aaron Rodgers throws for 30 to 35 touchdowns on the year minimum, and he doesn't get double digits to 10 to 15 touchdowns. There's no way it happens. I challenge someone to comment and show me where it legitimately could happen, because there's no way. Then not to mention the fact he's probably going to pop 1,000 yards on the year. With him being the number 1 weapon, he's going to get over 100 catches. He's probably going to get 150 targets. It wouldn't shock me if he actually ended the season as wide receiver 1. That's how much upside this guy has. Granted, he is now the number 1 weapon in Green Bay now that Jordy's gone. Jimmy Graham is there. So he's going to be facing the number 1 corner week in and week out. But I think he's good enough to beat it, especially with Aaron Rodgers. He's not afraid to spread the ball around. So if he frees up situations for Adams to get open, I think it's not crazy to say that he could be wide receiver 1, especially when the running back by committee situation that no one can figure out. I expect them to be airing it up just like always. My number 5 receiver, Julio Jones, 29 years old, 14th pick off the board, being picked as wide receiver 4. Same thing with Davante Adams. I think you can pick him in the early to mid-second round. I think there's a certain tier break that goes between the top guys. I think Brown is by himself. Then you have Hopkins and Beckham in their own tier. And then you have a couple guys, Adams, Jones, a couple guys not on this top 5, so obviously top 10 you can throw in there. All these guys, it's kind of splitting hairs at this point. It's kind of just personal preference. If you grab any of these guys as your wide receiver 1, you're sitting great. But Julio Jones, 29 years old. Yet last year he had 88 receptions off of 148 targets, 1,444 receiving yards, second most in the NFL, only behind Antonio Brown. 3 touchdowns. That's it. 3 touchdowns off of a 28% market share. Now, every year he's a top 5, top 10 receiver in football. But let me tell you something about Julio Jones. I heard it from the fantasy footballers, and I don't like taking people's information that they gather. I like to gather my own. But this is just such a crazy stat that it has to be repeated. Okay, last year, 20 players in the NFL had 19 red zone targets. Only 3 people in the NFL had under 40% catch rate. Julio Jones, Mike Evans, and Adam Thielen. Okay? that right there. Now, last year, Julio Jones was second most in the NFL for targets within 10 yards of the end zone, the 10 zone. He had 14 targets. Out of those 14 targets, he had 1 touchdown. Jimmy Graham, who had 16 targets last year, had 8 touchdowns. So, I mean, I'm not saying Julio Jones is a bad receiver, but when I think of Julio Jones right now, all I think about is 4th down and goal in the playoffs last year. Matt Ryan throws it up to Julio Jones, and it goes right between his hands to lose the season. So he's not the monster red zone guy that you would expect him to be with his frame and his speed, his athleticism. But at the same time, you look at Matt Ryan last year. Okay, Matt Ryan last year had such a down year compared to his 2016 year. That was the lowest yards he's thrown since 2010. And you look at 2016, he goes from 38 touchdowns, which is the most in his career. 2017 goes to 20 touchdowns, second lowest in his career aside from his rookie season. His average career on his career is 26 touchdowns, so I think he's going to go back closer to the 26, not all the way to the 38, but if it goes 26 to 32, I think that's about right for Matt Ryan on the season. The only people that Julio Jones has to compete with is Calvin Ridley, that they drafted in the first round, yes, but he's probably going to be a slot guy. Muhammad Sanu, who's washed up, Austin Hooper, and then those running backs. So once again, Julio Jones is going to be your guy for number 5, 100%. Yes, the touchdowns, but like I said, they're going to come back up. So now I'm going to go ahead and introduce Jeremiah. He's going to be coming in. We're going to be debating the top 5 and questioning whether or not some of those guys are deserving to be in there. So let's go ahead and bring Jeremiah in. Jeremiah, how you doing today?
So, thank you, David, for bringing me on today to the Fantasy Show.
Absolutely.
I am not going to be a regular on this show. I'm letting you guys know right now. I don't know enough about fantasy. I'll be straight up honest with you. I like to argue for your guys' points, so I will be coming on this show as an intern, basically, to speak for you, the people.
Well, you also know what the arguments are, too. It's not like you're just pulling stuff out of your butt. Like, you know what the arguments are that people are going to be saying, and so that way, you know, we can bring it up and not just leave it in the comments. Where I want to, if you got extra things to bring them up in the comments.
That's right. And for this one specific video, we are giving you guys a treat. We started realizing that to get with the curve of the rest of YouTube, we need to start kind of reserving some stuff for you guys on the side for Patreon. And this is going to be a segment that we're going to be bringing over to Patreon. So the fantasy show will just be David doing this first cap the way we just did from now on. But this segment of the show with all of you guys, the commenters, the viewers, the people that have been supporting us on Patreon, you guys will get the questions answered more there.
Right.
So we're going to try this today. Question number 1. Do you really think that Antonio Brown's going to have that good of a season with Le'Veon Bell and possibly not being there?
I say yes. Reason being is because Le'Veon Bell is a Hall of Fame receiver. I don't put him as. I meant Antonio Brown. Antonio Brown is a Hall of Fame receiver. I don't put him up there with Jerry Rice, Terrell Owens, Randy Moss, but I put him in the same comparison as like a Calvin Johnson, who I think Calvin Johnson is right behind those guys.
Pretty big comparison, yeah.
Right. So this guy, every single year in and year out, is a stud. He finished wide receiver, I think it's wide receiver 5 or better every single year since he's become the wide receiver 1 in Pittsburgh. So he's locked and loaded. I see him every single week doing highlight film type plays. You know, and even with Bell, with the potential not playing, we had this conversation last year, and look what happened. I would be shocked if Le'Veon Bell does not sign with Pittsburgh, and I actually have read reports that he's even closer than ever to sign those contracts.
I think that Pittsburgh's probably more tempted to sign it. But anyways, DeAndre Hopkins. I have a feeling, all right, this guy has had like 4 different quarterbacks. He's a great receiver, and he's been a great receiver with all 4 of them.
Except for Brock, really. I mean, that Brock is just Brock.
Well, and that's where my issue is going to go into year 2. Is Deshaun Watson going to have a step back because of the fact that he is now the main man? It's no longer he's the rookie, kind of just winning the spot and coming in there. He is the guy. Do you think that if he crumbles under the pressure that our boy DeAndre Hopkins is going to crumble with him?
I don't think so. Reason being is because last year going into it, he was coming off of a bad season, but you still knew that he was the number 1 weapon there. Will Fuller, as great of a stretch as he did, I think he had like 5 touchdowns in 3 games or some bananas thing. But he's not going to be threatening DeAndre Hopkins for targets. Like I said earlier, DeAndre Hopkins had 33% of the market share when it comes to pass attempts last year. Granted, not all of those are going to be catchable, and which will be a thing if Deshaun Watson does go down again and they have to bring in Tom Savage or fill in the blank.
Yeah, and if he runs more, there could be that high possibility of Deshaun getting hurt again. And basically with Odell,
right.
I've gone into thinking that guy has the biggest upside this year, but the injury, David, if that sets him back, I was looking at your list and I felt like a couple people were snubbed. Especially knowing that Julio Jones is down there at the bottom, Mr. Drop Central. If you were going to pick someone who drops the ball well and gets yards, I would have picked Cooper probably over him.
But then Julio Jones.
Yeah. But they're both some of the biggest droppers. Pooper droppers.
Speaking of Cooper, he's not even in my top 10.
I gotta disagree with you on that one because I think he's going to be a huge steal. If he's outside of your top 10, then that means a lot of other people are sleeping on it too. That's a steal.
I think he's got the upside, but definitely not. He hasn't proven anything. He had a couple big games here and there, but so has Keyshawn Johnson.
Never had an offensive coordinator like Gruden.
Head coach like Gruden.
He's both. It doesn't matter. He's the judge, jury, and executioner all in one.
So would you put him in your top 5, or who are some that you would put in the top 5?
In the top 5?
Over some of these
all
guys?
right, so here's one guy that I think that you're sorely missed.
Okay.
And it's Phillip Rivers' sidekick.
Keenan Allen.
That's right.
Yeah, and the thing with Keenan Allen, if you wanted to take him over Julio Jones or Devontae Adams,
I don't think that there would be any argument in my mind that that's a better choice.
I wouldn't argue it. The thing about your rankings, if you do your rankings on your own, is that eventually you gotta just look at a couple guys and say, you know what, I just like this guy better than this guy. I'm not saying Keenan Allen's gonna have a bad year. He's gonna be a phenom this year with Hunter Henry out. He's gonna have probably 30% of the targets. I'm not saying that he's gonna be bad by any stretch of imagination, but who would you put him in over?
Right now, Jones.
Okay.
I would say that he'd probably be at... I would also take out, though, for right now, because of the hesitation I have on him, I would say, and a lot of people are going to cost me for this, but I'd take DeAndre Hopkins and put him down at 6.
Ooh. Oh. Can you beat my fantasy league?
And there's one more person that I think should have slid into this because he's literally the only option for this guy. And as long as he's healthy, he should be one of the top receivers in the league, and that's AJ Green.
Oh, I agree.
Sleeping on him big time.
He's in my top 10. Last year he did struggle, and I think that put a bad taste in a lot of people's mouths. But he finished the season strong. Definitely top 10 receiver for sure. I agree with the Keenan Allen over a couple of these guys. I personally wouldn't take AJ Green over even Julio Jones. But if someone were to take it, that would be fine with me because I would just take Julio Jones.
Well, both of them are probably going to get about equal production. If you think about it realistically.
That's
but
fair.
Which one of them has less weapons around them to give him the best upside? I gotta say, it's our boy,
AJ Green.
What about your boy Brandon Cooks? You totally left him off of your top 5, dude.
Yeah, the thing about Brandon Cooks, he will be a guy that we're going to be talking about on the next video, which is 6 through 10 receivers. Don't get me wrong, Brandon Cooks is my sleeper pick of the year, which I feel like I don't even understand him being a sleeper. People are sleeping on him. Stay woke.
Stay woke. Stay woke.
Stay woke on Brandon Cooks.
Well, anyways, you also forgot. You know, he played in New Orleans, and with Drew Brees as his quarterback, he did really good. And another guy that has Drew Brees as a quarterback is Mike Thomas.
Yeah, I saw
How can you leave him out of your top 5 too?
Michael Thomas to me is Julio Jones in the Saints uniform, except for the difference here, because both guys are gonna get a lot of targets, a lot of catches, a lot of yards, not a lot of touchdowns. The thing about Michael Thomas for me is that you look at their offense and the way that they're gonna be scripted to play football and you compare it to Atlanta's. Atlanta's to me is more primed to pass the ball opposed to New Orleans with Kamara and you got Mark Ingram. A lot of people look at that as, well, wouldn't Michael Thomas get more targets in his first 4 games? Sure, maybe. But that means you got fresh legs coming in the middle of the season with Mark Ingram taking the load off of Thomas and Kamara, and that is why I put him a little bit lower than Julio Jones, where there's not that guy coming in partly through the year that's going to just take away looks for him.
Alright, well anyways, like he said, we'll be back here for another video for the 6 through 10 wide receivers. Stay tuned for that one. We just finished up 6 through 10 running backs. That video will already be up. Like I said, support us on Patreon. We really appreciate it. Even $1 a month helps us.
Yeah.
It's like donating to us, you know, I don't know, for those dog commercials with like the pounds and everything, you know, they say they save a dog every time you donate towards them. I don't really necessarily think that's true, but I guarantee you one thing, that if you give us $1 a month, I'll go save some dogs.
Where do we go? What? What just happened?
I was completely tying in non-profit organizations in this.
I just compare it with like an investment where it's like if you like what we say and you know you agree with what we're doing, we're putting the money towards the channel. So you know we're gonna get better lighting, better sound.
Less kids in the background. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you know.
Because like we could afford a babysitter and production crew.
Yeah.
Not doing this in my living room.
Or just convince someone to come over for an hour.
Can we do that?
Is that a thing?
I think I only got you on that one. And then my wife gets pissed at us because we're just over here talking.
Yeah.
She's like out of shot right now, just talking smack on us right now. No, I would never have the balls to say that on my wife. No. No. That would never happen. So like and subscribe, guys, and we'll see you guys next week.
Stay woke.
Whenever you're ready.
Alright. And we're live. Oh, we're not even live.
Cut.
Cut.